All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. My name is Kyle Demian. I'm joined here with Renji Matthew. And today we're going to be talking about how the government is dead broke. And they admitted it. It's not just what we say or believe. It's what the government is actually starting to come out and say themselves. There's a recent interview from Tommy Tuberville as he lets loose on Social Security and talks about how all of our Social Security contributions are currently being spent, and there's no money that's going to be left around for us, millennials, Gen Z, as the younger groups of people start getting closer and closer to retirement. There's a lot of uncertainty as to what's even really going to be there. So what we wanted to do today is actually share my screen. We'll watch the video together, and then Renji and I are going to talk about the video afterwards, give our insights, our ideas, and most importantly, talk about what you can do as an individual to make sure that you one day can actually retire. Because spoiler alert, if we don't do anything and if we rely upon the government, that day may never come. Right? So I'm going to share my screen and let's watch this video. It's about 4 minutes long and should be able to see my screen, and let's let it play.
This is all a scam. I mean, we got people that's getting ready to retire that's going to try to live off $2,000 to $3,000. Impossible. It's impossible. Because what happens, it comes up here, we spend it. We're $35 trillion in debt. We don't have any money. We're dead broke. And then taxpayers have $2 trillion in credit card debt. We are in huge trouble. In this body, we had better start figuring that out, because we're going to have a run on this city here soon, and there's going to be about 150 million people coming up here saying, where's our damn money that we paid in? I could have put my Social Security money, 40 years, in tax, in the market, and probably be worth 8 to 10 million today. But the federal government wasted it. So I'll get off my horse there. But it's good that we have this, because we got, I get a little pension check from education. I was part of a union. It's not going to help people. People are going to have to continue to work longer and longer. Am I right, Ms. Gender? Can you say something about Social Security and it being taxed for some reason? We're taxing people for the second time on Social Security that they put into an account.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out when Social Security was first founded, those who established it was started out as a 2% tax, and they said this will never take more than 6% of your income. Today it takes 12.4%, and depending on whether you go with CBO or Social Security trustees, it needs to take between 15.8 and 17.5%. So we're talking about thousands of dollars more per year. It also was actually only originally recommended that the tax be up to $66,000, equivalent in today's dollars of earnings. But over time it has expanded massively, and the money has been spent every year. So whereas everybody thinks this money's been set aside for me, no, for the past 13 years, every dollar that has gone out of workers' paychecks has gone immediately to pay promised benefits. And that's what happens when you have a system that enables those in charge of it to spend the money in the immediate term and leave the buck to the next generation that's coming along. And because Social Security has grown so much, it's actually to the detriment of lower income workers in particular, who have to pay such a large share of their paycheck to Social Security. They have little left to save for retirement. And then lower income and African American workers have the lowest life expectancies. So they are the most likely to get nothing back in return. 1 out of 4 African American men will die between the ages of 45 and 64 after having paid into the system for decades, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they might get nothing back.
What's the solution?
I think we ultimately have to shift towards a universal benefit system. That's what true social insurance is. It does not make sense that we are paying the biggest benefits to the highest income earners. So gradually over time, I think we need to bend down the benefits for the middle and upper income earners, actually increase them for the lower income earners, look at things like indexing retirement age to life expectancy, more accurate inflation index. And I think that workers need an option to have their money in something that actually earns a positive rate of return and that can't just immediately be spent by Congress.
I have a 28 and 29-year-old, 2 boys, got a job, working hard, paying Social Security. They ask me all the time, Dad, will I ever see any of that money? Will they see it?
I think they will see some of it. That's the exact same thing I hear whenever I ask a group of younger workers, and none of them raises their hand. So I think that there will be something there, but it's not going to be what has been promised.
Mr. Stephen, you got anything to add to that?
Thank you, Senator. What I would add is, when we talk about Social Security or we talk about pensions, the two things that they both have in common is that guaranteed income. You know what you're going to get, generally speaking, at the end of it. What I reference in terms of protected retirement, we have developed now solutions that get at both of those in a very efficient way, and they also address the issue around market volatility, because we have step-ups and lock-ins. And it's a very efficient way to deliver that to millions of Americans that we've been talking, and that's all because of what you all did around Secure Act 1.0 and 2.0. They have put us in a position to do that, and that's why I'm really encouraging us to have every 401k plan, 457 plan, 403b plan at least one of those solutions so that the American workers can choose. If they want to know what they're going to get in retirement, we can deliver that for them.
Young people of all ages ask me, why can't we put our money in our own 401k instead of put it in Social Security? Is there an answer to that?
I think what I love is that they're asking the right question. Savings in any way is a good thing, and I think there's a place for Social Security, there's a place for pensions, and there's certainly a place for what we're doing in 401k plans.
Thank you.
Senator Hassan.
Thank you.
All right. So, Renji, just finished watching the video. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about what we just saw?
I mean, wow, like, is Social Security going to be around by the time most people in our age get there? Like, that's,
Yeah.
the first thing, which we've talked about this before, but now for sure, I feel like it's not going to be around, right? What do you think?
My initial thoughts are that we're in trouble. Yeah. And I mean, even more so about what we talk about on our podcast, building wealth and creating passive income. You need to, we're almost getting to a point where you have to be able to build something for yourself that's not going to be reliant upon whatever happens in the government, whether that's next year or 30, 40, 50 years from now. There's a lot of uncertainty around it. And as you can see, like they don't even really have any ideas for ways that they can correct it right now. Right. So this is why that you need to at least be saving and investing your money minimally. On top of that, we talk about getting into assets to help you build wealth. But not only that, but getting into assets so that you own and control passive income. And then you can become financially free whenever you want. Right. Last week, we had a podcast where we interviewed somebody that's 22. He's getting into real estate with $0. And inside of his group, he's got people that are 15, 16 years old closing deals in real estate, making money. It might not even be legal. I'm sure they're figuring a way around it. Right. But maybe they're using his guardian to help him, actually close these transactions, but he's not even old enough to put his name legally on these contract papers. You know what I mean? So it's like the excuses, we got to take the excuses off the table and realize that it's going to be up to us. And if you don't do this now, if you try to rely upon the government, there may be a day that you never get to retire. Right. And so in amongst that, that's kind of what they talked about too. People need to be saving for retirement. And what if you have saved for retirement? What are your different options? Because people love Social Security and they loved pensions because of the guarantees in it. If you're inside of the stock market, if your money's inside of a 401k, there are no guarantees at all. Right. So, Renji, if you have anything else to add on, our previous little segment here, feel free to add on that. And then also let's start talking about like how people can start getting guarantees into their retirement, like the one gentleman was talking about at the end.
Yeah, so like you touched on, if you're depending on the government for a retirement, you might be in a lot of trouble. At this point, you need to start some kind of side hustle or be working two jobs or something you be able to put money aside. Because if you're trusting the government to provide when you retire, you might not have anything there. So you need to start doing your own thing where you have a guaranteed protection. And something that we've talked about on previous podcasts, having a secure retirement plan, be it tax-free or tax-deferred, where you're protected from the market and they're not dependent on the government. You get to control your asset instead of the government controlling it. The only problem with tax-deferred options are it is tax-deferred, so part of it is being controlled by the government if you think about it, because they get to decide what your tax bracket's going to be, right? Because you don't get to decide the tax bracket. I guess you get control what your income is, but overall, at the end of the day, the government decides what your tax bracket is going to be, meaning how much you pay on taxes. So if you keep planning to defer taxes to later, nothing wrong with that. The only thing is you don't get to control what tax you paid that at when you actually touch that money. So having a secure account, even if it's tax deferred, is going to go a long way, like we mentioned before. So, because if you have it in a traditional retirement plan where the market's going up and down, we've talked about how if the money goes down, it could take you several years to get back to what you were at. But if you had a secure account, you don't have to worry about any losses, not only from your principal you put in, but also from the growth. You don't have to worry about any losses. So if the market if it continues to do what it's done traditionally over time, in 10 years, your money could be tripled if the market continues to do what it's been doing. Because, again, you have the security from the market, so you don't ever lose money. So, again, try to have your own thing apart from the government. That way you don't have to worry about what the government changes its rules to and stuff like that. That way when you retire, you have, even if the government goes crazy and loses all your money, at least you have your own investments and stuff like that you can depend on. Again, this is why we keep talking about passive income. Passive income is huge because if you have built up enough of a passive income, when you retire and all your retirement plans go to death, like who cares? You still have passive income coming in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can ramble on about that. What did you want to add something to that, Kyle?
I guess the only thing I wanted to add was just as far as I see it, and they kind of talked about some of these different ways, is like how do we fix this problem as a country, right? And as far as I see it, the easiest way would be to lessen the government spending, or I guess that's not the easiest way. That's everybody's knee-jerk reaction. Well, how about the government stop spending money? Well, that's easier said than done, because I think we've dug ourselves in such a hole that just lowering the government spending isn't going to be able to help us overcome this deficit, right? So most people say, oh, if the government would just stop spending so much money, we're $34 trillion in debt. $34 trillion. The government only brings in about $6 trillion a year in tax revenue, right? So that's where most experts look to, oh, what they can do is they can just increase taxes to help us get out of this deficit, which is probably the most likely scenario, is that they increase taxes because it's super easy. Millions of Americans across the country, everybody paying a little bit extra in taxes to help us overcome this deficit is probably going to be the route that they go, which we'll talk about here again in a moment, which is exactly why you should not be saving your money tax deferred. Because if you're deferring taxes, and one of these ways for us as a country to get out of this hole is for them to raise taxes, why would you defer taxes when they're probably going to raise it in the future? That doesn't make any sense. You're paying way more in taxes if you do it that way. That's why you should be growing your money tax-free. And then the last way that they could potentially help with this is increasing retirement age. And I think they talked about that in the video. There's actually one more thing they talked about now that I'm thinking about it, but they can increase the retirement age, which they're already talking about. Right now that they say full retirement age is 67, they're talking about making it potentially age 70 or 72. So that's already delaying us retiring. And then the last way that they talked about, potentially helping us get out of this hole is raising the Social Security contribution amount. When they started it, it was supposed to be 2%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
When they
2%.
started Social Security, it's almost like another form of taxation on us too, especially if we're not going to see the money. That's how I look at it. When they started Social Security, it was only supposed to be 2%. Today, it takes 12% of our income. And one part in there, the woman that was speaking says it needs to be 15 to 17% of our income just for Social Security to stay afloat. So that's like the fourth way that they can potentially get out of this. None of the ways helping us as individuals, every single way basically coming out of our pocket in one form or another. Right, Renji?
Yep. Yeah, one form or another. And that's why we've talked about this on a previous podcast too. Even though they say let's tax the rich more, the rich have good CPAs and lawyers that know how to use the tax codes for their benefit so that they don't pay as much. So it keeps coming back on the middle class. The middle class is always who gets hurt when taxes are changed or go up and stuff like that, because even though they say it's going to tax the rich, they're not they're not evading taxes. They have good CPAs and lawyers that know how to go through the tax code, because we've talked about this before too. There's about 6,700 pages in the actual tax code. And with that, with all the regulations and rules they've added on, it's over 75,000 pages. And out of those 75,000 pages, less than 50 pages is about how to pay taxes. The rest is about how to defer taxes or not pay taxes at all, because it's set up to incentivize business owners to be able to fund the economy. So every time they increase taxes, even if they say they're going to or tax the rich, it's going to end up coming back to hurt the middle class even more. So like Kyle mentioned, our Social Security it was supposed to be at 2%. It's at, so much higher now, and they're talking about where it has to be at 15. for it to even stay running. So the only time a tax deferred account makes sense anymore at this point is if taxes are back up to 70, 80 percentile like it used to be when they originally made the 401ks and IRAs. Because the whole point of it was to let's defer taxes down to when taxes come down. Now, when we take the money out, we don't have to pay as much anymore. So that's the only time it makes sense anymore. Like Kyle mentioned, our national debt is 34 trillion, almost hitting 35 trillion. The only way to pay that down is by increasing taxes. So if you keep deferring taxes, right now when taxes are some of the lowest it's ever been, you're going to be hurting yourself later because now you're going to have to pay more taxes. And not only that, most people, 95% of people that retire, they don't have a mortgage to pay for anymore. They're empty nesters, so their kids are all out of their house, so there's less things you can write off. So in the eyes of the IRS, it's like, hey, let's tax them more. They have more taxable income. So,
Yeah.
and we're paying tax on Social Security, on income. Every time we go shopping, there's so many on property. Like, there's so many different taxes you're paying. So imagine how much less you'll have if you keep deferring and putting it into accounts that you can pay taxes on later. And not only that, if it's tax deferred and you don't have the protection, you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I like what you said because most people don't realize that yeah, when you get to 65, typically mortgages are paid off. They may not be, but for sure your kids will be adults and you can't write them off, right? Maybe there's a circumstance where you have a child, but typically if you have children, those can be some of your largest deductions in your working years. Some people like 401ks because you can deduct your income now and save on taxes now, push it off to the future. But that doesn't make sense, especially if we're talking about as taxes are going to rise. And let me be clear here before we get somebody in the comments that are like, but if you retire on less money, you have less taxes. The people that we talk to and the people that, who this show is meant for, if you're making $100,000 a year now, we want you to retire and be making $100,000 a year when you retire. The goal is not to be making $100,000 and then retire and just be making 40. Because if that's the goal, if you're going to retire, quite frankly, at about the poverty line, then sure, defer your taxes because if you're making less income, yes, you'll have less in taxes, and this may not matter for you. But who this show is built for, who it's made for, because we do understand how taxes work, we're encouraging people to go and get into assets so that then when they retire, ideally you're making more money in retirement than you were while you were working. Right. And then if you're going to be making at least the same income, it doesn't matter if you pay taxes now or if you defer them, if the taxes stay the same. Right. If you're making $100,000 now versus $100,000 a year in retirement, if taxes never change, you're going to pay the same amount of taxes, whether you grow your money tax deferred or you grow it tax free. But if taxes go up by just 1% between now and age 65 or age 70 or age 55, right? Whenever you plan to retire, for how many ever years that is for you, if taxes go up 1% or more, it's more advantageous for you to save your money and to grow it tax-free, right? That's how retirement planning works. That's how financial planning works. And if your financial advisor or if your advisor in general for money and taxes isn't talking to you guys about this, welcome to the next world of financial wherewithal, let's call it, right? Welcome to the next level of wealth building. Because not all financial planners talk about this. Not all accountants talk about this. Accountants and tax filers and tax planners, they're usually just looking in this current year. How can I save you the most amount of taxes in this year, 2024? Your financial advisor, they want to grow all your money. They want to grow all your money in assets under management, right? But if all your money is tax deferred and you haven't paid any taxes on it yet, guess what? They're getting a higher percent rate of return on your money in the market. I'm sorry, they're getting a higher percent asset under management fee if all of your money is tax deferred, right? If you have $1 million that they're managing before taxes, after taxes, that may be equivalent to $750,000, which means they're lowering their commissions for themselves. This is why most financial advisors never push tax-free retirement accounts. It's why they never push index universal life, IULs. It's why they never push cash value life insurance. It's why most of their accounts are brokerage accounts or accounts that are IRAs, traditional IRAs. Some may recommend a Roth IRA, but they're lucky because Roth IRAs are protected at only $7,000 a year contributions, right? So they can tell you to do that and just put the rest in tax deferred accounts, but they're maximizing their commissions when they do that at the same time. Most financial advisors I talk to never talk about tax-free retirement planning, never talk about tax-free planning in general, because there is a disconnect from their commission. It does not incentivize them to talk about those strategies. For us, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter whether you save your money tax deferred or tax free. We'll get paid regardless, based on how we can help you, right? And actually, some of the tax free strategies may even pay us more. I don't know. I'm going down a rabbit hole now. Renji, I want to turn it back over to you. But as far as that goes, like, do you have any other thoughts or insights into tax free or taxes and what we were just talking about?
No, the only thing I would add is, like you said, we do make money on this as commissions too, but the we don't get paid like assets under management. We get a short amount referral bonus from the company, whoever we refer you with, up front, and that doesn't come out of your money. It comes out of their marketing budget, and that's it. We don't get paid anymore after that. But because we don't get paid anymore after that, and commissions are low on these, your money is also protected in the market, and you don't have to worry about losing ever. If it's on the tax deferred side, you don't have to worry about losing at all, and they could be some of these have fees, some don't have fees. Of course, if there's a fee, there's some type of value they provide. On the tax-free side, they most of the time will have fees, but the older you are, the fees do get higher. But there are ways to get around that too, which is why we talk about hitting us up, because it's not one size fits all. It would be discussions we would have to see what your goals are, where you want to go. But yeah, I want to end it there because like we the commissions are totally different, but it's like providing a service. You get paid for the service you're providing, right? I want to go back to talking about the video though. One of the things that uh, she mentioned too, which was really concerning, where she talked about most of every dollar that you're paid income on, that taxes are taken out of, as soon as it hits Social Security, it's going to pay benefits that were promised to people that are already retired, which is crazy because that means they don't have anything like built up in there, right? And she
Yeah.
said it's been going on for years now. So imagine if it's been going on for years, how much is going to be there by the time people our age gets to retirement? Probably nothing. That's probably why they've increased retirement to 67 over the last couple of years when it was 65. And that's probably why they're talking about increasing it to 70 years, because their whole goal is, hey, let's just keep extending it. That way there's more money coming in that we don't have to pay as much. And then something else she mentioned is minority people that don't live as long. So if in your history, in your family history, most people pass by age 70, or if they pass by age 80 or whatever, you've gone all your life paying into Social Security. Now, if you don't live past 70, you didn't get to benefit from any of that. So what are we doing? Like, again,
Yeah.
if you put all your trust in the government, and not saying our government's is there to hurt you. They set these programs up originally to help people, but they didn't manage it the right way, and now we're where we're at, right? So it's better to set up your own things too, so that you don't have to depend on the government solely. And that's another reason why we push passive income, because even if taxes change, the tax codes, like we said, less than 50 pages out of the 75,000 pages are about how to pay taxes. There's so many different ways you can write off the right legal way. We're not evading taxes. It's the legal way to write off things if you're a business owner. So we've talked about this before too. As an employee, there's not so many things you can write off. As a business owner, there's so many more things you could write off. And then there's differences between an LLC and S corp and stuff like that, but that's getting into the weeds. But as a business owner, there's so many more legit ways you can write off and keep your money, keep more of your money. So building a passive income portfolio of whatever it may be. We talk about real estate a lot, but there's so many different things out there. If you build a portfolio like that, you don't have to worry about what the government rules change to, right? So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover, and then we can talk some more about like the secure accounts and stuff like that if you want to. But is there anything you want to add to what we talked about, Kyle?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is actually from a comment I saw online somewhere this week. But somebody said that by the time he is 67, he would have paid over $600,000 into Social Security. And at 67, that money would be worth about $1.9 million if he would have gotten just a 5% rate of return, right? And we've talked before in previous podcasts about how retirement works. And if you have $1.9 million inside of an account and you withdraw 4% a year from that, that would give you $76,000 a year of income, right? So that's if he put his money in the market. Social Security and the government promises that they would give him $3,000 a month, which is $37,000 a year. So if he would have had control of his own money, put it into an account earning 5%, which is low for the market, right? So if he would have put his money into an account earning 5%, he would have about $76,000 a year of income. The government and Social Security is only promising him $37,000 a year. So, and he ends this post by saying, "How is this not theft?" Which I agree, right? But at the same time, this is something that we necessarily can't control as individuals, right? This is why we talk so much about wealth building, getting into assets, controlling your own income, controlling your own lifestyle and wealth, right? And at the end of the day, we're in a hole that as a country, we have to find a way to dig ourselves out of, and there's only a few ways to do it, right? So with that, Renji, that's all I've got to say. I don't know if you want to wrap it up with anything else. I know you've got a meeting here in a few minutes as well anyways, just to help you. I don't know if you can see the time where you're at,
Yeah.
but anything else to wrap us up for our show today?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, like you said, the only few ways that the government recommends to get out of that hole is only going to hurt the population. Because it
Yeah.
would be by increasing taxes or reducing Social Security or whatever it might be. And to add to what that person that you were talking about online, even in that video, the guy spoke in the beginning how he said, if I would have put what I put into Social Security into the market, for him it would have been 8 million by now. Which again, like you said, how is this not tech? Right? So
Yeah.
again, guys, we love for everyone that's listening, if this is helping you learn something new, maybe you didn't know about all the Social Security stuff. Maybe you didn't know that they changed Social Security age to 67 and talking about changing it to 70. Maybe you didn't know how the Social Security is paid out and all that stuff. Hopefully, we're able to show you some insight into that and go do your own research like we talked about before. We're two dummies trying to provide value. So go research on all of this stuff and get to know what you'll be at, where you'll be at with your tax brackets, where you might be at with Social Security and stuff like that, because it could vary depending on the state, how Social Security is paid out, how it's done, stuff like that. So look into all of that, and also look into assets. If you have some kind of goal in your mind of, okay, I want to get into real estate, I want to get into vending machine, whatever it may be, like do some more research into that because it might not be a bad idea to get something started, especially if you're younger, because the earlier you start something, the better, right? So hopefully we are able to provide you guys some value, and hopefully you guys keep coming back to hear more so we can provide even more value. That's all I
Absolutely.
got, Kyle. Do you want to close this out?
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you guys for watching another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. As always, like we said, we're just two dummies. Nothing in this video is to be taken as legal, tax advice, or financial advice. We do one-on-one consultations to be able to help you out with that and to refer you over to our team of accountants and CPAs that we work with. They're the ones that will provide that type of legal and tax advice. We do help people with retirement accounts in doing that, but we'll never provide general information over a a podcast or a show like this that is intended for you to go out and take financial action on, right? Everything should be designed one-on-one. That way we're truly addressing your needs, your concerns, and making something personable to you. So if you guys ever want to have a chat with us and reach out, we're open. We don't currently charge for consultations. And you can reach us at our TikTok accounts, Instagram accounts. We'll have those posted below. And feel free to comment your thoughts below this video. We talked about a lot today. So comment your thoughts, comment your ideas, and maybe ask us questions if you want us to cover anything in the future. We've started to have some guests come on now. Of course, we are open to having podcasts and shows on any other ideas you guys have as well. So leave those below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. Take care. Have a good one.